of us like to make use of videos and images as part of our lessons to make them more impactful and to give people something to look at. Careful use of images can be really effective and can really support our teaching. But in particular, when we're thinking about difficult topics, we have to be super careful about our choice of images. Firstly, we need to make sure that any images or videos that we use reflect true diversity. We need to make sure that we are representing a range of ethnicities and genders, ability and disability, and so on and so forth. Every pupil in your class needs to be able to look at the resources, the images, the videos that you're using and see someone like them affected. What can happen otherwise is that we inadvertently are saying to our pupils, this isn't about people like you, this doesn't affect people like you. And so they disengage a bit from the lesson. But conversely, seeing images shared of someone just like them in the context of this might make them go, oh, okay, this is about me, and makes them listen in more. So diversity really matters. Ensure all of your learners are reflected. The other reason why diversity matters is that otherwise we can feed into stereotypes about particular issues. So for example, if we were talking about self-harm or eating disorders, often we will use female imagery, and this just reinforces that point of view that eating disorders and self-harm are something that affects girls. They do affect girls, but they affect boys too. These are issues that are non-discriminatory. They affect everyone. But when we show images only of girls, then we say to the boys, this isn't about you, this doesn't affect you. A couple of specific issues about images to very much avoid. So firstly, if you're teaching about eating disorders, avoid images of emaciation. So a very typical thing to do when teaching about eating disorders is to teach about anorexia and to show lots of images of people who are very thin. Now this can be really harmful because it can be triggering for the vulnerable young people in the room. Whilst these kinds of images can be quite distressing for many people to view, and we might think, well, maybe that will put people off. They don't, but what they do is that for anyone in the room who is currently suffering with an eating disorder or who is perhaps going down that road or maybe in recovery, these images can instantly trigger those unhelpful thoughts, feelings and behaviours. Because whilst what you might see is a distressing image that would put you off from ever engaging in this kind of behaviour you feel, for the young person who's affected by an eating disorder, what they're doing is calculating, what do I think that person's BMI is, which talks about their height to weight ratio. Has my BMI ever been that low? What would it take for me to get there? And we can get almost quite competitive about ourselves versus that image on the screen. So it can be really triggering and really harmful to specific individuals within the room. The other issue with sharing images of emaciation is that eating disorders can happen at every size. You can be underweight, a healthy weight, or overweight with an eating disorder. But the pervasive imagery is all of underweight, and that can mean that someone who has an eating disorder who isn't severely underweight might feel like they can't access help when needed. It can also mean that friends and staff are less able to pick up on the warning signs of eating disorders because we think it always looks very thin, and it doesn't. In the majority of cases, people with eating disorders are not underweight. But that is often not the story our media tells, so we need to try and change the record there. If we're teaching about self-harm, we should also avoid sharing images of harm. There are two different reasons for this. One is that they can be instructive, and we should never be talking or teaching about specific methods of self-harm or suicide, because this can provide a bit of a how-to guide for vulnerable young people in the room. So we don't want to show images which indicate methods because that can be harmful and triggering. Also, we don't want to share images that just might generally cause distress, and again, images of harm may do that. But finally, when we show images of self-harm, or for that matter of emaciation, if we show the kind of more extreme end often of these issues, that can be really invalidating for the pupil in the room who perhaps might have been getting to a point where they're thinking about asking for help for something because this lesson has made them realise that this is an issue that my teacher knows a bit about and they've shared some good sources of support, and then suddenly you share an image of very severe self-harm when actually what they've got is some relatively superficial looking wounds, and they might go, it's not that bad for me, I probably don't need help, I don't deserve help. And that's the kind of thought pattern that we will really often see, is that if our injuries our weight is not echoed in the images shared on the screen, and those are more severe, then we think our problem isn't one that we should be worrying people about, and that causes a direct barrier to help seeking, so we want to avoid that. So do use images. Use images to help pupils see people like them in the context of this lesson. Represent true diversity, but don't show severe ends of emaciation or overweight for that matter, or self-harm. And don't be sharing methods via your images either. If you found this video helpful, you might be interested to learn more about YouCan. YouCan is our new, ever-growing, on-demand video CPD service for schools. Each course is made up of a series of modules just like the one you've just watched. Each module is designed to be highly practical with ideas that you can use right away. We're growing our library of courses every week to meet the demands of our subscribers. There's a huge wealth of training that you and your colleagues will be able to access if your school subscribes. Our short, practical videos make it easy and enjoyable to learn, so you can do anything you set your mind to.